Daniel thought making more money was the answer to his problems, but the truth was, he had never learned how to control it.
Every month, Daniel got paid. And every month, somehow, the money disappeared before he could figure out where it went. He bought things he didn't need, ordered food he could have cooked, and spent money just because he felt like it.
Daniel finally understood the problem. His money didn't have a plan, so he divided it between bills, savings, and investments. But saving wasn't enough. Daniel wanted more income, so he stayed up late, working from his apartment while the city slept outside. Eventually, that extra work paid off. When the money arrived, Daniel didn't spend it. He immediately moved part of it into savings. Walking through the mall, Daniel saw things he wanted. But this time, he kept walking. His financial goal mattered more than another impulse purchase. Even when his friends spent money on expensive entertainment, Daniel stayed focused. He knew one night of spending could delay his bigger goal. Months later, Daniel opened his savings account and stared at the balance. For the first time, he could actually see his discipline paying off. Now, Daniel was ready for the next step. Instead of letting all his money sit idle, he carefully began investing for the long term. He watched small contributions grow over time. Daniel finally understood that building wealth wasn't about getting rich overnight, it was about staying consistent. Then another temptation appeared. Daniel wanted the expensive item, but his financial goal was sitting right beside him. This time, he chose the goal. He turned his phone face down and returned to his plan. For Daniel, discipline was becoming stronger than the urge to spend. The next morning, Daniel walked through the city with a different mindset. He wasn't chasing the appearance of wealth anymore. He was building it. Standing above the waking city, Daniel realized the truth. Financial freedom doesn't begin with millions. It begins when you finally take control of $1 at a time. Daniel didn't stop after reaching his first goal. He opened his notebook again and decided where every extra dollar would go next. Daniel didn't stop after reaching his first goal. He opened his notebook again and decided where every extra dollar would go next. Daniel didn't stop after reaching his first goal. He opened his notebook again and decided where every extra dollar would go next. He also became careful with debt. Instead of borrowing for things he didn't need, Daniel started asking whether the purchase was worth years of future payments. Every evening, Daniel spent time learning. He read about investing, taxes, real estate, and the simple financial principles he had ignored for years. Then Daniel discovered the power of compound growth. Small amounts could become surprisingly large when given enough time to grow. So he automated his investments. Every month, money moved into his account before Daniel had a chance to spend it. Months passed, and Daniel finally reached a milestone that once seemed impossible. His savings had crossed $10,000. He didn't throw a huge party. Daniel simply sat back with his coffee and realized how different his life felt compared with a year earlier. But success brought a new temptation. Daniel began wondering if it was finally time to spend the money and enjoy the lifestyle he had been avoiding. He compared the purchase with his long-term plan. The numbers were clear. One expensive decision could erase months of progress. Daniel walked away, not because he couldn't afford the item, but because he finally understood the difference between being able to buy something and actually wanting it. For the first time, Daniel wasn't afraid of unexpected expenses. His money had a system, and that system was finally working for him. Financial freedom suddenly felt less like a dream. Daniel wasn't rich yet, but he was no longer trapped by every paycheck. Daniel finally understood the real lesson. Building wealth wasn't about earning more than everyone else. It was about keeping control of what you already earned. And that was the moment everything changed. Daniel stopped chasing money and started building a life where money could work for him. Every month, Daniel sat down and reviewed his numbers. He wanted to know whether his money was moving him closer to freedom. He found a few expenses he didn't need and canceled them. None were huge alone, but together they gave him more money to invest. Instead of letting that extra money disappear, Daniel increased his monthly savings. His goal was simple: make saving automatic and spending intentional. When his next paycheck arrived, Daniel didn't feel the old excitement to spend it. He already knew exactly where the money needed to go. Part went toward bills, part toward savings, and another portion toward investments. Daniel was building a system instead of depending on motivation. Then, an unexpected car repair appeared. A year earlier, this bill would have destroyed his budget. This time, Daniel simply used his emergency fund. For the first time, an unexpected expense didn't create panic. Daniel realized that saving money wasn't just about becoming rich. It was about becoming prepared. Once the emergency was handled, Daniel returned to his plan. His investments continued growing quietly in the background while he focused on his work. Months turned into years. Nothing dramatic happened overnight, but Daniel kept following the same simple habits again and again. Slowly, his investments began producing returns, Daniel finally saw why consistency mattered more than trying to find the next big financial shortcut. The old Daniel spent money to feel successful. The new Daniel measured success by how much control he had over his future. Even as his income increased, Daniel avoided lifestyle inflation. He didn't need every raise to become another reason to spend more. His lifestyle looked almost the same from the outside, but behind the scenes, his savings and investments were quietly becoming more valuable. Daniel finally realized that wealth doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes, it looks like a normal life with choices, security, and no constant financial fear. And that's the lesson most people miss. Becoming wealthy isn't one giant decision. It's thousands of small decisions made consistently over time. Daniel wasn't finished. He wrote down his next goal, because reaching one milestone meant he could finally start working towards something bigger. He knew saving had limits, so Daniel focused on increasing his income. He began learning a valuable skill that could raise his earning power. Every evening, he practiced instead of scrolling through social media. It wasn't exciting, but Daniel understood that valuable skills could create valuable opportunities. Eventually, a small opportunity appeared. It wasn't a huge paycheck, but Daniel accepted it because he knew small opportunities could become bigger ones. The extra income went directly into his financial plan. Daniel didn't suddenly become rich, but every month his position became a little stronger. Daniel's biggest transformation wasn't in his bank account. It was in his thinking. He had stopped asking how to look wealthy and started asking how to build wealth. He learned delayed gratification. Sometimes, saying no today meant giving his future self a much bigger yes. Daniel stopped thinking about what he could buy this weekend. Instead, he started thinking about where his decisions could take him 10 years from now. His investments continued growing quietly. Daniel didn't check them every hour anymore. He had learned that long-term wealth requires patience. Bills no longer terrified him. Unexpected expenses no longer destroyed his month. Daniel had built something more valuable than appearances, financial security. He looked back at his old spending habits and barely recognized himself. The person who once spent everything now planned every dollar. Daniel finally understood what freedom really meant. It wasn't owning everything he wanted. It was not being forced to buy anything just to feel successful. He still had bigger goals ahead, but now he had a clear direction. His money had a purpose, and his future was no longer left to chance. He still had bigger goals ahead, but now he had a clear direction. His money had a purpose, and his future was no longer left to chance. Because money doesn't change your life by itself, your habits do. Control your money today, and one day, your money may finally give you control of your life. Subscribe for more psychology, money, and wealth stories.